Hey YouTube, welcome back to the Thrash Bandicoot 01 channel. In this episode of Thrash Interviews, we're going to be talking to Bryan Phillips, lead singer of Central Florida alt-metalers Alive and Stone. In this interview, we're going to be talking about the band's origin and influences, along with other topics like the health of the Central Florida music scene. We have a great show in store for you today, and we hope you enjoy.
Yes. All right. First off, Brian, I want to thank you for taking some time to uh, come on and do the show, man. Great to have you on. Um, so when it comes to Alive and Stone, um, how long has the band been around and how'd the band come together?
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. So Alive and Stone has been a band for about, I want to say going on 4 years now. And the band started off as like a side project of another band that I was in before. And I kind of knew that I was kind of, possibly making my exit at the time with that other group. And so I started writing a bunch of songs, which eventually became the first album. And I recorded probably 6 songs and then went and looked for the members. And the first guy I found was Matt. And then I would find the others after that. But that's kind of how the band started.
And who would you say are some of the big influences for Alive and Stone have been both for you individually and for the group as a whole?
I would say for the group as a whole, like Herman, our drummer, is definitely like a 2000s kid like me. Heavy Seven Dust and like Alter Bridge type. But I think he goes from everything to jazz to like salsa to everything. He loves everything. Doug is definitely influenced by a lot of Iron Maiden and Anthrax and Tool and like a lot of older bands, but just because he's a Gen Xer, so he's a little bit older than we are. Um, but Matt's huge fan of Ozzy, Black Label Society. Definitely a fan of Disturbed and a lot of the 2000 sound. Me personally, I was always a fan of like old school Linkin Park. Kind of set the tone for a lot of us. Big time Tool fan. Love Chevelle. Love all those 2000s bands. But my influences throughout my life have just kind of gone all over the place. I'm influenced to everything from Sade to like to like Ibiza style house and EDM, like Dead Mouse. I mean, the first band to really make me want to play was a band called Orgy. And then I would eventually get into alternative music culture after that. But for me, like my influences are kind of all over the place. And I would say those are some of the big ones to start, though.
Yeah, sometimes having all over the place influences can be fun because it's fun to take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and mix it up.
100%. I think that the best thing you can do as an artist is, it depends on what your goal is, but my goal has always been to try to create something that's unique and fresh and different. And I think that's kind of where we're at. And for me personally, I think that if you're not expanding musical palette, you're going to have a lot less colors to paint with. So you're 100% right. I mean, you need to have that. You have to have that.
Okay, I like that metaphor of the color palette with painting. I think that's a very apt comparison for the music world. And back to with Alive and Stone, a couple of days ago, you guys put out the music video for your latest single, Disdain. Can you tell us a bit about that song? What were the inspirations behind it?
Sure. I think that song was so the song was created quite a while ago. It was about a year old. And it was written on a day where I was just kind of down in the dumps about how music was going. And you kind of just feel like you're spinning your wheels sometimes, and you get into a place where you're like, you know, why am I still doing this? Right. And it's like, I was like, well, you can tell the world how you feel about still, not wanting to do this anymore by writing a song. And I just tried to make the song feel like what I was feeling at the time, which was just an intense dislike for myself at the time. And that's kind of how it came out. And that song just is over the top. It's it's aggressive. The unfortunate part of it is that we're probably creating songs like that are probably not going to be something that we're probably going to do on the next album. But that was how it was captured.
Okay. And when it comes to the next album, what's the progress on that like?
So we're already in the middle of writing for it now. Um, I will tell you that it will probably be by far the darkest and probably the heaviest album we've put out, and probably the most experimental in terms of entering a new place that we've never been before as a band.
Okay. Experimental and dark. That sounds like one hell of a record right there.
It's going to be progressive industrial new metal.
Okay.
Is the formula that I would say you're going to get on the next one.
Well, I mean, kind of ties in because you mentioned Tool earlier,
Right.
and they kind of did that.
Right. So what I would say the next album is going to be more like is like take take bands like A Perfect Circle and Tool and those odd time signatures and that progressive kind of feel, and then combine it with something you'd hear Nine Inch Nails or Prodigy do, but more EDM influenced than new wave influenced, and then somehow make it fit a somewhat traditional structure, even though that's not something that I think is like a goal. But I would say that this one's probably going to be the first album where it's going to be like the attitude is like, I don't care if anyone listens to this. I just want this to be fresh and just different, just unique. Like I want to reach as far as I can at this moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And usually, like, rock and EDM and those genres that you mentioned, usually people view those as just like two completely different things. So I think
100%.
sometimes it's good to cross over like that.
Yeah. I honestly like. I think that if I think that as an artist, you try to. I think good artists try to create something that the music is lacking, and something that hasn't been created yet is kind of what I'm after. And I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I kind of don't really see a reason to do it if you don't want to take that risk. And one of the greatest things that could be said to me is I don't know what this is, or like I don't know, what the fuck this is. I don't know if I'm supposed to like this or not. You know what I mean? Because it means I haven't heard this before. And if you think about it, no one had heard Sleep Token had done before. No one's like that, right? No one's like System of a Down. No one's like Tool. You know what I mean? You can find people that can get in the ballpark of that, but it's like when you really like want to go into a deep place, like it's like that's kind of what I'm kind of finding is really what we're after. You know what I mean? Is to make it for us. If that makes sense.
Yes. I was trying to think. Yeah, that does make sense because sometimes you just gotta get it out and see if people dig what you're doing, and even if the public writ large, it's like, hey, you still put it out.
Yeah, honestly, sorry about that. I didn't mean to lose you. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just kind of like, I mean, no one's listening to us now, so it's like, why do I care if I put out something that no one likes, right? That may be the one thing that makes people listen. I think that our journey as musicians has been good. I think that it's been a good platform, but I feel like our last three albums were a lot safer than this one's going to be, and I like that. I think that this one is going to hopefully be one that to give us a lane, as musicians.
So I saw you guys back at Coastal Carnage Fest in Ormond back in
Sure.
March, and I think um, when I met you guys, I think Doug and I briefly touched on this. We were just talking about just sort of what it's like being in the local scene and what some of the hurdles smaller bands face in getting noticed?
Um, I would say I think everyone's battle is obscurity. I think obscurity, no one knows who you are. And a when you have like a scene that's maybe moving in a specific direction that's more popular, and maybe it isn't what you belong to, it can be very challenging, especially if you don't really share an identity with a lot of those folks. That can definitely be a struggle. I think small bands struggle with momentum. I think that constantly putting out music and constantly writing and constantly doing it is hard for a lot of people. And band members, you know, they find better projects, and they find they you know, you lose guys at a small level because you don't have the momentum and things like that. You know, it's tough. So it's really important that music, to me, and just being an artist in general, is just like it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. The only people that really bust through are the people that are either doing what's popular at that moment, or they're the people that have already had enough artistic development to create their own lane. And even if you have, you still may be sweating it out till the time comes. It's all about, can you stay consistent? It's like there was this dude, there was this like LA like PR chick or somebody like that was like, the music industry doesn't break artists, it breaks like nervous systems. She's 100% right. Can you keep creating after one failure after the other? And so getting noticed in the scene requires going out to shows, meeting the promoters. They may not want to bring you in. You may not have the sound they're looking for. You may not have the draw. Doing free shows, you know, I mean, it's a grind. It's a grind, and I think the way that you bring attention to yourself and the way that you get noticed is you have to bring something to the table that's exciting, and that's a huge challenge for a lot of bands because you have to dig deep if you don't have it.
And also, just from a fan perspective, it just feels like, especially in today's digital social media era, it seems like it's pretty you have to get noticed through that way as well, through the internet too, getting latched onto an algorithm or whatever. Because like when I was like a kid going to local shows for the first time, you know, this was like late 2000s, early 2010s. Like, yeah, social media still existed, but I also still remember street teams were still pretty common. And now it's like you just have to put it out there and see how it gets picked up.
So this is probably not going to be something that you're expecting me to say, but the rules are they're not much different than they were back then. The only difference is that these days labels don't develop bands anymore. They don't develop identities anymore. All the bands that are busting through on the algorithm and are doing well on social media, they're all bands that are developed. They've put the work in to create something that holds people's attention. There are people that are doing the attention thing. They're doing the latest trend, and you'll get success doing that for a while, but it's like, what happens when the trend changes, right? And so you're as someone who's functioning in today's music society, you're having to learn the language of a platform, right? And you're having to create it in your unique way. And the only way to do that is to develop your own unique way of doing it, and to try to bring the qualities about yourself that are authentic and are real. All the bands that I'm seeing that are fucking blowing up, they don't seem to be spending money on ads, really. They're all bands that you can trace all the way back to their TikToks. When they started, they found their own lane. Like Dexter and the Moonrocks, for example, like they're huge. They figured out TikTok. They figured out how to build a brand that caters to their culture, and they built it from the ground up. South Arcade's the same way. They have an aesthetic that you know exactly when you see them, and it all boils down to development. You know, Dark Divine's another one. You know, a local group. they came on the scene. They knew exactly what they were going to look like. They knew exactly what they were going to sound like, and they knew the culture that they were going to go to. I don't know how much time they spent on socials figuring it out, but whatever it was, they were picked up. You know what I mean? And so I think in this day and age, you'll never do as little to promote your music as there is now. But at the same token, if you're someone like us who has to keep developing to break through, then that's your responsibility. So I think there's a lot of doom and gloom about the TikTok trends and all this stuff. It's like, look, now the bands that are exciting, that have something, they're busting through. They're breaking through. You know what I mean?
Okay. That actually was the answer I was looking for. I just wanted a bit more insight and a bit more light shed on that, just coming from the
Sure.
perspective of someone who's, a fan and not a performer in the scene.
100%. Sure.
Funny enough, mentioning social media, I remember also at Coastal Carnage, I think I mentioned that it was actually a post on the Alive and Stone Facebook page that told me the show was happening, and I remember you bear hugged me after I told you that.
Yeah, it was great, man. We had a good connection. It was really cool. It was good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to see you as well, and um, that was actually my first time seeing a lot of those bands there, and just, there are times where I do feel a bit awkward about that because I'm like, the state of Florida has like a very thriving music scene that it's like, well, I feel like I gotta get out and see these guys often, and so there was one of the few times I could get out there and really see all you guys in person.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like we appreciate it. Like it was really cool. It was a great vibe, man. It was a really cool vibe. Everyone was really friendly and you were great. And I really enjoyed chatting with you. And, you know, the whole thing is just, the whole thing was like really felt like the old days. I think that right now, as long as we keep on nurturing that, I think that we'll be able to get a bigger scene, and we'll keep on pressing forward. It was really an enjoyable experience. I really loved it. Big shout out to Bronson for putting on that festival. It was awesome, man. I loved it.
Oh, it was an absolute blast being out there because I had actually never been to an event there. I'd been there a couple times just as like a patron into the bar area, and so I think Bronson and his crew did a great job putting that show together. And mentioning Coastal Carnage, that actually kind of ties into the next thing I was going to bring up. Um, just about what would you say the health of the Florida music scene is right now?
Um, I think it's there. I think it's still there. I think that you know there's definitely I think the scene that is I think certain venues house certain sounds. I think the promoters that run certain that are partial to certain venues have a certain sound that they're looking for. I think that there's in terms of bands that are true blue new metal or 2000s rock bands, I think that we've been around for a while, but I think that a lot of the other venues that like Conduit and Will's Pub and everything, I think they house a lot more alternative acts and a lot more of the trendier acts. And I think for good reason. I mean, they're getting good draws and there's a good community there. I think that I would just like to see the rock bands that have been around for a while keep pushing their sound further and keep trying to make it fresher and just keep the excitement going and keep working with each other. That's the biggest thing. I think that would improve the scene a lot. And not play the same sound, and try to experiment, and I think that would be good for everyone. Rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Oh yeah, and yeah, because the Conduit seems to host like you said, a lot of the alternative bands. I've seen a lot of like metal shows at the Conduit, especially back when it was still the Haven Lounge. Back in those
Right.
days, they were very
Yeah.
much the metal venue.
Yeah, I mean, back in the Haven days, back when I was in Dark Summer, like we would play there all the time, and there was a lot more of that radio rock type of buzz there, along with the other metal bands, and it was kind of like we were kind of in this net. And now, rock music is taking a lot of a pop approach now. And there's a lot of those, radio rock these days is something that's completely different, you're getting dark alt pop, and you're getting the Weekend core style and the Bad Omen style, and you're getting a lot of bands that are partial to that, and the Deftones thing is, and new gaze, and new grunge is starting to come forward, and kids are wanting to pick up instruments again, and a lot of those sounds are really finding their, and metalcore, modern metalcore has now been more digestible than it's probably ever been. And so that's kind of being at the forefront of what's going on in a lot of these scenes, and kind of meshes well with everything else that's going on as an alternative sound. We're a band that I think has been in the 2000s lane, and has that kind of old school sound, and that not necessarily was meant to be what we were trying to do, but the realness of it, and the rough around the edges approach is the goal was always to take it somewhere where it's like, I don't, this is rock, but this is something different. That's always been the goal, and so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it in terms of what I think.
Yeah. So funny you mentioned Bad Omens. They came on the radio when I was coming home today.
Right, yeah, no, it's an amazing band.
Yeah.
Really good band.
Yeah. And just like the thing with metalcore, that was the whole thing. I've noticed as well. A lot of those metalcore acts have been blowing up, and I just think the diversity we're seeing in a lot of different styles just been over the last few years just been really cool.
Yeah, you're seeing definitely a lot more. You're seeing a lot more experimentation with genre, which I think is cool. And I think bands are definitely taking a lot more. They're definitely taking some chances. I think that the majority of metalcore seems to be very pop influenced, which is something that I notice. Not anything that is not anything that like I'm taking a dig at, but it's just like it seems to be very pop driven now, and I think there's a couple bands that definitely deserve the credit for that. But yeah, it's there's definitely a lot more bands that you hear about, and there's definitely a lot of styles out there that are really cool.
The term that I heard somebody use was octane core, referring to the Sirius XM station.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, octane core, that kind of thing. Not my thing. As much as I'm super guilty of wanting to be a part of that sound, like these days, like I don't really, yeah, I'm like not really. If it chooses us for some other reason, I get it, but it's like the octane core thing just to me is something that I'm just not really into anymore. I'm wanting to do, if I have to be honest. That's definitely something that I'd want to move away from.
Okay. And in addition to writing the new album, what would you say is next for Alive and Stone?
Yeah, so what's next for us is to definitely write the album, and to try to dig out the best songs we can dig out, and the ones that represent what's going on, and try to have a brand that goes with it, and just keep making music and just not think about it much.
And to finish off, what advice do you have for anyone out there looking to start a band and be a part of their local scene?
I would say do it for you. Don't do it to be famous. Don't do it for money. Try to do as many things as you can to move the momentum forward with the songwriting process. If you're a drummer, try to learn guitar. You know, if you can learn chords, you can learn how to make something that's bare bones that represents what you feel, and you should try to do that. And go out and have fun and be nice to everyone. Don't shit on anybody. Don't, you know, don't talk shit about people. You know what I mean? And just like be friendly and try to help move gear, and be somebody, be someone who's fun to be around and not an asshole, because the words will get around and people will find out that you're whatever, and people are gonna resent you. They're gonna have issues with you. So don't.
Hey, and is there anything else you'd like to add for this evening?
No. This has been a fantastic interview. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got to connect again. This is great.
All right, it was great seeing you again, Bryan. I want to thank you very much for taking time to come on today, and can't wait to see you live in stone again and hear what's next from you.
Absolutely, man. Can't wait to show you guys, and everybody have a good one. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it having you on, Bryan. See you around.
Thank you. Yep, no problem.